Hi everyone, I make Excel and PowerPoint templates to help people get ahead in their careers and get the most out of their business and their organization. This one in particular is a control chart, a really wonderful way of seeing your process and how it's tracking over time, or even things like sales or other things, other metrics for your business. And the best part about it is we can use it to determine trends and also to determine if it's outside of certain control limits. So that's the point of a control chart. You've got your upper control limit, your lower control limit, and you can see if it's
يعطيك العافية. طبعا هذا الفيديو أنا حطيته في مثال توضيحي عن الكنترول شارت وكيف نعملها بإكسل. كان يعني الهدف إنه بس نوضح لكم الخطوات على أساس نقدر نناقشها بشكل أوضح المرة الجاية، والرابط موجود طبعا عندكم على الإي-ليرنينج.
out of control, so if we're maybe getting too many defects, for example, in one direction, or if it's gone back the other way and under the lower control limit. And of course, if we change this or if we modify this, it will modify the chart, and you can see very clearly that the control limits will change based on the standard deviation of your process as well. So this is a really, really cool thing. I think you're going to absolutely love this spreadsheet. Let's check it out and let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is just do the general colors and the general framing of our spreadsheet. And we might speed this up ever so slightly so we can get to the really good stuff of creating the actual control chart itself. We're going to make this a little bit white, and so that stands out as a nice section that we can fill in, and we'll just give that a little border as well. Have it in the center, over to the left, and we'll increase the indent ever so slightly. Now we can get started on our table, and we'll just get started with a border around the whole sides, and we can do multiple borders at once as well. So what we're going to do is select all of this and just go to more borders, and this way we can select a normal border, make it the vertical style, and that gives us all of our vertical borders in the middle as well, which is really, really great. We'll do the same for the horizontal, and so that way maybe we can make that maybe a little bit lighter, and that's going to be quite nice. And then if we don't want these borders in the future, we can actually do the same thing. We can just click that to get rid of those ones. And so these are going to be our control limits, and we've got our average here. We've got our upper control limit, UCL, and our lower control limit, LCL. And these are our numbers down the side. We can copy those down and just let Excel do the work for us. Now, of course, we want our dates in the date column here, and there are various ways that we can do these dates. If we format this cell, we can actually change the way that they're formatted. So we can have, if we've got 2 days and 3 M's here, that's going to be the word, so JUN, for example, instead of 6th. Which is a 6 month. And you can add years to it and it will change the way that it's formatted. It's really up to your preference for this one. Now we will need the various measurements on these particular dates as well, and it just depends on your particular process and what you have measured, whether it's defects or whether it's sales or something so similar that you're measuring in your business. We're just going to put some dummy data in here for now. Now it's also time for us to create the average and the upper control limit and lower control limit information. And so we're just going to give this a little bit of color. Maybe we can put those over to the right, indent them ever so slightly, and maybe we'll give them a little bit more of a gray. But how do we figure these out? So the data average, this one we're going to say equals, and we're going to say the average. Nice and simple in Excel. And if we select all of these values in our particular table and close the bracket off, that's going to give us the average of all of those values, and that's what we're going to use on our chart. Now we just want to remove some of these extra decimals, and that's looking a little bit better, and that's our first value. Now the second value we need is the standard deviation of all of these values as well, and we're just going to say equals STDEV. It's just the population, so the P, and if we open the bracket, then we're just going to select all of these values, close off our bracket, and here's the standard deviation of all of those different values. Very handy. Now we can use those to get the upper and lower control limits. So we're just going to say the upper control limit actually equals the average plus the standard deviation. Now, traditionally in Six Sigma, you might have 3 standard deviations away from the mean or the average, but look, for my purposes, I find that that's too far away usually. So it really depends on what you're measuring, and just use what suits you. You can have 2 or 3 standard deviations away, or just one, or you can make up another value that suits your process. For the lower control limit, of course, we're going to say equals the average, and then we're just going to minus or take away the standard deviation from that. And once we've done that, that gives us our lower control limit. Now we can start creating our chart, and we've got all of the values that we need to do so. To create our chart, let's select the date and the values sections, and we'll insert just a normal line chart. And there we are, that's a good start for our control chart. But as you can see, it needs a little bit of work in order to look a little bit better. First of all, the date values have not come across very well, so we're just going to right click on this one, and we'll select this and right click on it and format axis. Then let's select our number and go to category and go to a date instead. Okay, now that's looking a little bit better. And we can format that in the same way that we wanted, that we looked at our formatting in the first place. So we've got 3 months and 2 years, and if we add that in, now at least that's looking the way that we want it to look. But also this is still going through our chart, and so how do we change that? What we're going to do is go to our axis options again and just go down to labels, and instead of next to axis we will say we'll have it low, like at the bottom end of our particular chart, and that way it's underneath all of the data that we've input, even though it's going under 0 sometimes. Now we can add in some nice markers, and if we just go to the marker section here, maybe we'll select a built-in one, maybe a nice round marker, and make that ever so slightly larger. Now that's already starting to look a lot better. But what we want the header or the title for our chart to actually be something else. So if we select that title and we go to our formula bar and say equals, we can have that as the name of our control chart, whatever we choose that to be in the future. And pressing enter will automatically update that. And we also want to update or add some of the chart elements. So we are just going to go to axis titles and have one on the left hand side as well. Now that hasn't given us anything good, so we can do the same trick here and go to our formula bar and say equals, and that can be the value that we're looking at. And if we press enter, now we've got a beautiful title on the left hand side as well. And now we're looking a lot better, but we still haven't got our upper and lower control limits and our average. So here's where we're going to have to do a little trick. And this is the rest of our data table here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say for our average is equals the average that we figured out down here. But when we select this data, we actually want to put a $sign next to the D and next to the number, mostly next to the number, just so that it doesn't drag down when we copy it down. So if we press enter there, we're just going to drag that all the way down, and that keeps the same number, keep referencing the same cell, and that's exactly what we're after, because we want that to be the same on our control chart. Now we're going to do the same for our upper control limit and our lower control limit as well. And we might just center that and make sure that it's all nice. Now, once we have those values, we can keep them looking like that, or we can hide them a little bit, or we can hide them a lot if we really want to, just by coloring those particular cells and the information within those cells. Let's just keep them a little bit visual for now, so that we know what we're working with. And here's where we're going to have to add these to our chart. If we select our chart, and if we actually just drag this across, so that now that we're referencing these particular ones, as you can see, we've got some beautiful lines coming into our chart. But we do want these to be a little bit less, not as prominent. So if we right click and format the data series, then we're just going to go to the line details, and we can decrease the size of this so that it's not as prominent. And we can actually change the color too. So we can make this one a nice green, for example, and it doesn't need any of the markers. So with our marker, what we're going to do is go to our marker options and just say none for this one. And now we've just got a normal line, and that's looking a little bit better. And now we have 3 beautiful lines. We've got our average, our upper control limit, and our lower control limit for our chart. But there's just one last thing missing, and that is having a nice label for each of these, so that we know which one is which, and especially when we're showcasing this to executives or to our customers. And there's a very simple way that we're going to do this that is dynamic for our chart as well. We're going to select the first data point, and we're just going to say add a data label. Now, of course, at first it adds the data label as a number, and so we want to format that data label And we actually want to say the label contains a value from a cell. And if we click that, it asks us to select which cell. And we want the upper control limit cell that we named all the way down here at the beginning. And if we click OK, then that will update, but you can see it still has the number there as well. So if we get rid of the show leader lines, and if that doesn't work directly, not necessarily the number, but just the name, and here we go. Now we can uncheck the value box, and that's much better. Now we just have the name. So if you get stuck there, just play around with it ever so slightly. You might need to check a few of those boxes. But now we have this label, and it's linked to our upper control limit. So if that changes, that's going to move with our other one as well. Let's add the other two, the average and the lower control limit. Maybe for the lower control limit, we just want that to be below, I think, yeah, that's a little bit nicer. And now, as you can see, we have all of our data over on the left here, and it's created a beautiful control chart which goes above the control limits, below the control limits, and it has the average in the middle. And of course, it is dynamic, so if we add a section here, it will change those control limits for us as well. And it will move those labels for us automatically as well. Now this is a really wonderful thing. Your executives and your customers and the people in your company will absolutely love this chart when you show it to them. I hope you have enjoyed creating this sheet with me as much as I've enjoyed creating it with you. And I hope to see you in the next videos to create more of these beautiful sheets and templates that you can use to get ahead in your career. I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.
طيب إذا هي فقط هي demonstration how to build a content structure. راح نحكي عنها بتفصيل أكثر، يعني يبين لك يعني المين والأبر كنترول ليميت واللور كنترول ليميت، بالإضافة لأنه طبعا هاي زي ما أنتم شايفين هي انتراكتيف، يعني إذا غيرنا قيم نقدر نستخدمها، نغير القيم ونعدل عليها زي ما بدنا، يعني بدون ما نعيد بناءها من أول جديد. تمام، والله يعطيكم العافية، شكرا لكم.